Good evening. I'm going to be inking Jinx from Arcane, a drawing sketch that I did. And I'm using, I just kicked the table on that one, didn't I? Yep. I'm using Strathmore Bristol 100-pound paper, 9x12, and a Pentel brush pen. I love this pen, recommended to me by one of my art buddies, Mr. Cool as Heck. I did a sketch, which I think is in a previous post, and one of the things I've been doing is doing a gouache wash over the sketch to give it some background and tone. This time, I actually erased the lines too heavy and did the gouache wash, and then I lost my drawing, my sketch. So I had to actually go back and try to put some landmarks in, but the sketch that I did, I pretty much lost it when I did the wash over it. So we'll see how this goes. I'm gonna have to make up some stuff as I go and try to figure it out. But we'll go ahead and get started. Let me get my scrap paper here. I always try to keep a little blotter, make sure my pen is good to go, and I'm not, actually let me double check the ink tube. I love these because they're, oh, see, look at that. I was about to start and it's completely empty, but this is a good time to show how to replace them. I would have been highly disappointed. I got into it and then I ran out of ink. But you just pull that off, preferably not over your drawing, or you just drop a big glob of ink on it, like I just did. You take the next one, you push it on. I like to give it a little twist to make sure the seal is broken. Screw the handle back on, grab your little scrap, and make sure you get a nice flow before you start. There we go. All right, now I'm good to go. But as you can see, doing that over, I dropped a piece of ink right on there. I'm gonna leave it. I'm not gonna worry about it. I'm just gonna turn it into some type of detail, I guess. Oh man, I hate it when I do this and I lose my drawing. But such is life. We shall see how it goes. But I love doing the wash underneath the ink, because if I decide to use markers on it, this gives me a good background to use the markers. And if I decide I don't want to, color it with markers or colored pencil, well, it doesn't matter, because at least there's a little bit of tone underneath it. So that adds a little bit to it. I could also use colored pencils on it, which is pretty good. It gives, one of the other things it does, it gives the paper a nice surface. Look at that. I just jacked this all up, didn't I? It gives the paper a nice surface to hold ink, watercolor, gouache, colored pencil, whatever I decide to finish it out with. That gouache wash just, one, it dries very quickly. Two, by putting the wash on it, if I do decide to paint it later, I don't have to worry about buckling because I've already wet the paper. And that takes a big load, a big worry off of my plate. So that's always a good thing. Like I said, I'm trying to find my sketch under here because I lost it. So I'm just kind of making up some of the stuff as I go. What else did I want to talk about? Oh yeah, the wash. And it gives the paper a different feel, a different texture. I really love it. it's not something that I came up with myself. It's something that I got from another artist, and I forget the artist's name at the moment. I am so sorry, but it's not a technique that I developed. It's a technique that I got from somebody else. I tried it, I loved it, and I've been doing it with my sketchbook covers. I've been doing it with my drawings, and I think what I'm gonna do is continue to do it on sketches, sketch cards, comic sketch covers, the whole shebang. Now, as far as Arcane Show, if you have not seen Arcane Show, it's based on League of Legends. It is fantastic. One of the best animated shows I have ever seen in my entire life. It is so good. It's based on Riot Games, and they produce it. The art team is Fortiche out of somewhere in Europe. I forget where they're based out of. I should have had this information ready before I started this. But they did a great job. They really killed it. The show was fantastic. The plot was great. If you haven't seen the making of Arcane Show, it's available on YouTube, I believe. And, you know, they talk about what they had to go through to make the show, develop the storyline, and, you know, a lot of the pain and anguish they went through for that. And I'm glad they did, because it really paid off. It really shows in the care and feeding that they gave the characters. Just a sec, let me get this right. So it looks like hair. The care and feeding that they gave the characters. You know, and I can't wait for season 2, to be honest. I know they've already started production on it. It may come out this year. I think it's scheduled to come out in 2023. So I've been in a hunt looking for details on it. It is such a good show. And like I said, I would argue that it's definitely one of the best animated shows ever. But I would also argue that it's one of the best shows ever. Not even just in animation, but I mean, period. It is fantastic. I've actually had this discussion / argument with several people, you know, that there's not a show better than what they've put on. It's just that good. And Jinx, aka Powder, is one of my favorite characters. She starts off as a little girl who, you know, wants to be like her big sister, Violet, and they call her Vi. But she's still trying to find her way. She messes up stuff, and she hasn't really grown into being a badass like her sister. Well, that changes, and Powder becomes Jinx. And she kept a name that was given to her as a kid because she was jinxing their programs, their plots. And if I'm spoiling it for you, well, just stop watching this video, because I'm going to be talking about season 1 and how good it was and what happens in it to prepare for season 2. So it's not like it's not available. If you haven't seen it, you have time to go watch it. And if you're watching this, you've probably seen it anyway. And the characters are in the video game. They're a little bit different in the movie, or TV series, I should say. I think the first season was about 13 episodes, 10 to 13 episodes. I can't remember how many specifically at the moment. I'm anxious, but it follows the kids as they grow up and as they evolve into, who they're going to be in their younger life. I don't want to say adult life, because they're not necessarily adults in the show, but they're not little kids anymore either. They're young adults, maybe. The villain, and actually I think, in my opinion, there's a couple of villains in the show. There's not one main villain. There's several villains, in my opinion. The other thing I like about doing this gouache wash is it really helps the paper soak up the ink and dry very quickly. So as I'm inking, this area over here, I'm not worried about smudging it. And that really helps. Now, if you drop something on there and you start touching it right away, you're gonna smudge it like I did. But for the most part, it dries relatively quickly. And what I love about using the brush pen is, with a little control, which, it took me a while to develop. If you've never done brush inking, if you're used to using the pens where you can press as hard as you want to, you get the same type of line. Not so with the brush. But I can, if I want to, I can go very lightly and get, nice light lines, break it up if I want to, especially around areas. But then in the same stroke, I can vary the line thickness, and I love it. I love to paint, so this works out for me very well, because when I transition over to painting, I'm still used to that brush control and not having to worry about pressing too hard and blobbing everything out. Now, I will say that you'll notice a lot of jitter in some of my lines, and that's because I'm trying to videotape this at the same time, because normally I would be probably more over the paper and I'd have more control, but then you wouldn't be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm trying to stabilize myself while I'm doing this, and that's causing me to shake a little bit more than normal. So if I'm over it and I'm blocking the view a little bit, it's because I'm trying to, get the lines that I want. And I usually try to start off by just getting in the big shapes and the forms. I'm not going in with any of my deep blacks yet, which I plan to do. Now, there are places where I definitely want like a nice thin line, and I'll pull out, I love the Copic multi-liners. I'm using a 0.1, I have a 0.5, 0.3, 0.8. But for women, females, and younger people, you want to limit a lot of the lines that you show because it makes them look older. So some of the lines that I want to show on here, I want to make sure they stay thin, but give the indication of volume. And so I'll pull out my 0.1 and I'll just indicate the line that I want there. And I don't have to worry about it being too thick. So I will do that in some of the areas that I want to make sure I get that just the way I want it. And those are the areas that I wanted to do that for. So knock that out real quick and get back to the brushing. Now, I'm very heavy-handed. So if I'm not using a brush, I do tend to press hard. And when I get to some of my smaller inks, like the 0.1, I have to be very careful because I can push the tip right into the pen and ruin the pen. So if you're heavy-handed, when you get to those smaller pens, make sure you're being careful or at least cognizant of what you're doing. Now this area here, I really had a nice sketch that I liked. I'm kind of sad that I lost it. But I'm going to try to do my best to get it just the way I want it this time. For this particular sketch, it's a lot of the feeling is in the mouth, in the way she's biting the pins on the grenades, saying, hey, it's go time, bitches. And like I've said, I think she's my favorite character so far in the series. And when she comes back with that vengeance, oh man, she is a badass. Let me tell you, she is not to be trifled with. I think this is coming out pretty good so far. I've lost a lot of lines, but I think I'm finding my way around them so far anyway. The other thing I like about what they did in the show is just the mood. So I talked about, one of the reasons why I thought it was one of the best shows I've ever seen. And a lot of it has to do with the artistic style of the animation. I won't lie. It's mind-blowing what they did. It is absolutely incredible. Even without a great story, the animation would have been fantastic. With the story, it just makes it even better, of course. But, and if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure it's won several awards, just the animation team on this project. I know they've been nominated for a bunch, and I'm pretty sure they've won a bunch, if I'm not mistaken. It's a painted style animation almost, and It is incredible. It is absolutely gorgeous, which is why it's not like a 3D live, what's the word I'm looking for? Realistic type of animation. But it is based in 3D, but with a painted style. And that really brings out the characters. It brings out the story. It's incredible. They did a fantastic job. And I think when Riot went to them, that's kind of what they had in mind. But I think it absolutely exceeded everyone's expectations on the project. I think, their final, I'm pretty sure they knew it was going to be different and they knew it was going to be good. But I think what they wound up with, probably far exceeded what their actual expectations were. That's how good I think it turned out. A lot of times doing curves like this are a little bit harder. When you do a curve, if you can go with the arc, the natural arc of your arm, they come out really nice. So doing it this way is a little bit awkward, but I think it came out all right. And if it didn't, well, it's ink, so that's what it's gonna be, right? And this is coming out okay. I didn't check, well, I think I charged up the battery, so I don't think I'm worried about, let me check. Yep, it's still recording. It's been about 22 minutes. Normally, it wouldn't take me this long to ink it, but I'm talking at the same time, which means I probably won't be able to put this on Instagram, which is where I had planned to post it in the first place. So I'm probably going to break this up into a couple of videos just to make sure that it's not overwhelming for anybody who wants to watch it and for anybody who just wants to watch different phases of it. Maybe not everybody's interested in the second and third parts of what I'm doing, or maybe they're not interested in the first parts, or maybe they're not interested in any of it. Who knows? Maybe they're like, get out of here with your bull crap. See, this is one area where I lost the line, and I'm trying to get it back. And then there's some areas where I really love getting a broken line, showing that the dynamics of the piece, giving it life. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. In this case, I think it's coming out okay. All right. That's the first level of inking. And I'm going to stop this video And then I'm going to go to another video and start working on the deep blacks. There's one area here that I'll go ahead and fix that because I see it. Other than that, that looks pretty good. And this is a pretty decent sketch. But after I add in some of those deep blacks, that'll make it start coming to life. See you in the next video.